Hello, and welcome back to Annexed, a podcast that dives into why crimes against Indigenous populations in the United States typically go unrecognized, unreported, and unresolved, with the goal of raising public awareness of what is missing in the media and the American narrative. In our first episode, we discussed a little bit of the tragic history of Indigenous populations in the United States, including the genocide of Indigenous peoples through settler colonialism, the boarding school era, and the orphan train system. We then talked about the missing white woman syndrome, particularly in the well-known case of Gabby Petito compared to missing and murdered cases against American Indian and Alaskan Native individuals. Next, we delved into the data and statistics on missing and murdered Native American and Alaskan Native people in our country, including talking about NamUs, the Department of Justice's National Missing and Unidentified Person System, and the Urban Indian Health Institute's report on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The overall theme of that episode that I hope resonated with listeners is that there is a disproportionate representation of crimes against white citizens compared to crimes against American Indian and Alaskan Native individuals in the media, and that missing and murdered cases against this population are extremely undercounted in our country, with thousands of cases falling through the cracks of our criminal justice system. In this episode, we will cover two cases against American Indian and Alaskan Native women that were skimmed over by the media and are not widely known by the public. These two cases will focus on Emmilee Risling, a 33-year-old American Indian living in the Yurok Reservation in California who went missing in October of 2021, and Sophie Sergie, a 20-year-old Alaskan Native who was found dead in her University of Alaska dorm in 1993. Before diving into these cases, I want to warn listeners that there will be a graphic content in this episode, including the mention of sexual assault, rape, and murder. Please feel free to turn the episode off if the content becomes too much. And with that, we will get started into the episode. Thank you for listening. Emmilee Risling is a 33-year-old American Indian woman who lived in the Yurok Reservation in the Hoopa Valley of California, which is located in the state's northwest corner, close to Del Norte and Humboldt counties. The Yurok Reservation is a 44-mile stretch of land alongside the Klamath River. The Yurok tribe is currently the largest American Indian tribe in California, with over 5,000 enrolled tribe members. The Yurok tribe in California is one of the only American Indian tribes who have never been removed from their ancestral lands. They provide community services to their tribal residents and are working towards natural resource protection, sustainable economic development enterprises and land acquisition, dam removal, and passage of the Hoopa-Yurok Settlement Act, which advocates for the division of the joint Hoopa Valley and Yurok reservations. The Settlement Act would establish the boundary between the Hoopa Valley Reservation and the Yurok Reservation, place the unallotted trust lands and assets of each tribe into United States Trust for the benefit of both tribes, and place all national forest lands within the Yurok Reservation to the use and benefit of the Yurok tribe. Emmilee Risling graduated from the University of Oregon in 2014. She is a mother of two and a successful Hoopa Valley tribe dancer. Emmilee went missing in October of 2021 and was last seen crossing over a bridge in a remote area of the Yurok Reservation. On the other side of the bridge, the pavement ends and turns into a thick, wooded area. Before her disappearance, Emmilee had been struggling with mental health issues, with her family and other tribe members reporting her acting erratically. For instance, Emmilee was seen walking around two different tribal reservations in a small town in Northern California's Lost Coast, naked and confused. Emmilee was also arrested a few months before her disappearance for arson as she ignited a fire in a nearby cemetery. Instead of providing Emmilee with mental health and addiction services, the court released Emmilee to her family. However, the stigma of having a mental health disorder and being involved with the police made local law enforcement agencies less inclined to put care and effort into finding the missing American Indian woman. Emilee's sister, Mary Risling, said to the press, "The amount of times my sister has been picked up over the years by the Humboldt County Sheriff, it's like, let's get her in trouble, but let's not help her. When the police officers have a certain number of run-ins with a person and they go missing, they have this stigma over who this person was or who they thought she was." Over a year later, and Emmilee Risling is still missing with little to no evidence and no suspects or people of interest in the case. Emilee's friends and family are devastated that no developments have happened in Emilee's case, and they want to spread awareness of her disappearance and of missing and murdered Indigenous women in general however they can, to hopefully help Emmilee return to her daughters or return to her family and her tribal land where she may rest in peace. Emilee's father, Gary Risling, said, "We want the word to spread far and wide about the challenges in helping investigate and solve these cases." KLCC, a public radio station based in Eugene, Oregon, reported that Emilee's disappearance is one of 5 cases in 18 months of Native women gone missing or found murdered between California's Bay Area and the Oregon border. The Yurok tribe in California has declared a state of emergency due to Emilee's disappearance and the other missing and murdered Indigenous women in the area. They are advocating for California to establish a comprehensive database of cases of missing and murdered Indigenous people, and they have led several search parties for Emmilee over the past year. The Hoopa Valley tribe also offered a $20,000 reward for any individual who comes forward with information leading to Emilee's safe return. Emilee's mother, Judy Risling, shares, "It's just a helpless feeling. Indigenous women. You know there's statistics out there, but given the fact that the cases don't get much attention, there would be a lot more information if they did. If you or if anyone you know may have information about Emilee's whereabouts, please contact the Hoopa Valley Tribal Police at 503-625-4202. That number again is 503-625-4202. As tragic as Emilee's case is, she is one of thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous women in the United States, and there is much work that needs to be done to bring justice for Emmilee and the other women whose lives ended too soon. Next, we will talk about the tragic murder of Alaskan native Sophie Sergie. Stay tuned, and thank you for listening. Sophie Sergie was a 20-year-old Alaskan Native woman attending the University of Alaska in Fairbanks. Sophie was studying marine biology but was currently taking the year off of school to work as a teacher's assistant at the Pitkas Point School in Alaska, where she grew up and her family lived. In April of 1993, Sophie had flown into Fairbanks to attend a dentist appointment and spend time with her college friends. The night before her murder, Sophie had watched a movie with her best friend, Shirley Wasuli, in Bartlett Hall on the University of Alaska's campus. Later in the night, Shirley left to spend the night with her boyfriend and returned to her dorm room the next day to find the room unlocked and Sophie gone. At 2 p.m. on April 26th, a janitor found Sophie's body in the second-floor bathroom of the dormitory, which appeared she had been raped, shot, stabbed multiple times, and left sitting there for several hours. It was clear at the time that whoever had murdered Sophie knew the University of Alaska campus, how to blend in with the students, and most likely lived nearby. Semen had been found inside of Sophie's body, but was not able to be tested due to the lack of DNA technology in Alaska at the time. Although Fairbanks did investigate the case after Sophie's murder, no people of interest or suspects were taken into custody, no one came forward with any information, and the murder weapon had not been recovered. Due to finals quickly approaching, the police had not been able to interview all of the students who were in the vicinity at Sophie's time of death, and many students had left the campus to go home to their families due to the vicious murder. As a result, Sophie's case eventually went cold. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a cold case is an unsolved criminal investigation that has stopped being actively pursued because of lack of evidence. For over 25 years, Sophie's friends and family grieved the loss of the bright young woman and longed for justice for Sophie's death. In 2018, the Alaska State Troopers Cold Case Unit decided to test the semen found in Sophie's body in 1993 as DNA technology had become much more advanced. The Cold Case Unit also compared the genetic profile from the DNA to relatives using GEDmatch, which is a popular website used for genetic genealogy and family tree research. The DNA testing and genetic genealogy tracing led investigators to Stephen Downs, now a 47-year-old male living in Maine. But Stephen attended the University of Alaska at the time of Sophie's death and lived a floor above where Sophie was staying in Bartlett Hall. Stephen had claimed that he was with his girlfriend at a party during Sophie's time of death, but his girlfriend counteracted his statements by saying that he had left the party during the night and she was not with him for several hours. In August of 2019, Stephen Downs was arrested for Sophie's murder and faced trial in Anchorage, Alaska. The jury in the case deliberated for 2 days before finding Stephen Downs guilty of rape and murder of Sophie Sergie in February of 2022. Stephen Downs received a sentencing of 75 years in prison and will hopefully spend the rest of his miserable life behind bars. Sophie's mother had passed away before Downs had faced trial for the murder, but the rest of her family reports feeling relieved and finally experiencing a sense of peace since the fateful day in 1993. Although justice was finally found for Sophie Sergie and her family 25 years after her death, there are thousands of cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women who have not received justice or even an investigation into the crimes against them. If cases against missing and murdered Indigenous individuals are investigated, it is not uncommon for them to go cold due to jurisdictional disputes, federal red tape around Indigenous tribes, and lack of effort of law enforcement agencies. NamUs, the National Missing and Unidentified Person System in the United States, reports that tens of thousands of individuals remain missing for more than 1 year. The Urban Indian Health Institute's report on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls also found that only 116 cases out of 5,712 cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in 2016 were logged into NamUs, showing the huge discrepancy between reported cases and unknown cases in our country. Sophie's case also begs the question, if Sophie was a white student, would her case have been more closely analyzed after her death, and could justice have been found for her a lot sooner? From my analysis into missing and murdered American Indian and Alaska Native individuals in the United States compared to cases against white citizens, my answer would be yes. Stephen Downs finally has to face the consequences of his horrific actions, but there are so many people out there who have not had to face the consequences and continue to live their lives while the families of their victims suffer. In the next episode of Annexed, we will discuss what we as citizens, what the federal government, and what local jurisdictions can do to better support and protect American Indian and Alaska Native populations in the United States, and how we can become advocates for those who are lacking a platform to share their stories and experiences. Stay tuned, and thank you for listening to Annexed.